Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to talk about a rumour what has been sent to me a few times. And in a way, it's not really a rumour, but it is sort of a rumour. Technically it is, but it makes sense, so it probably isn't. That's very confusing, I'll just get on with it. Essentially, we have things like Forgebane, we have Tooth and Claw, we have the Dark Imperium box set, we have the Blight Wars box from Age of Sigmar, we also have the Soul Wars box from Age of Sigmar. I think it was Blight War, I'm pretty sure. I think it's War in two of them, isn't it? And now there is the Battle of 4 of Pelennor Fields, the Lord of the Rings thing, which I believe is £95, like all of the others. And essentially, the rumour that I've been sent a few times boils down to, we're going to see more of these. Going forward, as we go into the future of Warhammer 40k, we are going to see more of these boxes. They're going to come out more regularly. We'll see multiple ones coming out a year for both 40k and Age of Sigmar. And my response to this, first was to go to people that have already given me good information in the past and go, you heard anything about this? And my second response was to go, yeah, probably. Sure. It's one of those things where technically it's a rumour because someone somewhere said it and now people are repeating it. But let's face it, it's not the biggest stretch of imagination, is it, to think that that might happen, because all of those boxes have been very, very popular. And it also completely ignores a more interesting aspect to those boxes. I mean, when you look at what has come out, you can see why I'm not sitting there going, no, clearly bullshit, we're never going to see another one again. We've had quite a few this year. When you actually look at what we've had, I mean, we've had Forgebane, we've had Tooth and Claw, we've had the aforementioned Wars sets from Age of Sigmar, we've had the Lord of the Rings thing as well. That's quite the number of larger boxes to throw out there, compared to previous years or previous trends where you didn't get anywhere near that many. I mean, I know we've seen things like the Burning of Prospero and Betrayal of Calth. Those, mind you, they're the same damn thing. It's still a £95 box where you get two forces individually. Those are sort of different because they're kind of their own games, and those to me felt like Games Workshop going, hey, you want a bit of that Horus Heresy? Here's your foot in the door, now go to Forge World and buy all the expensive shit right now, please. That's what those felt like. Not complaining, because the contents of those boxes were great for starting a Space Marine army. You had a sizable infantry force buying either one of those. If you bought both, you had a nice mix of parts and stuff that you could use to make quite a cool army. But that's what they felt like to me. I've never really classed them in the same as like the starter set, like the Dark Imperium set, or Forgebane or Tooth and Claw, just because they didn't feel like the same thing. But trend-wise, we're seeing that stuff on the rise. And to me, the interesting part of all of that is not the fact that we're seeing more of these boxes. It's the actual contents of the boxes themselves. So, again, this is not particularly a new trend, so to speak. There's been new models in boxes for ages. I mean, a prime example of that being the Dark Vengeance box, the one that had the actual nice-looking Chaos Space Marines in. And then they just never made those ever again, because I don't know why they didn't make those again. I did wonder the other day whether it was because those had to be monopose, whether they couldn't be customizable because there was too much detail, and so they didn't want to make it so that people had to have a bunch of squads the same. But then we've had since Death Guard, which are they're not hugely customizable just because of how much detail there is. And when I kind of thought about that, I was like, we might genuinely see those designs come back at some point as less posable Chaos Space Marine kits, because the trend has already been set. You know, they've already tried it with Death Guard, and Death Guard did really well. We might see something similar for Chaos Space Marines. On the one hand, losing the customizability, the adaptability is bad. On the other hand, the current Chaos Space Marines kit is a bit shit. So, replacing them with actual, even if they are monopose static models, I think I'd be okay with it if the overall look was way better. So, actually getting new models in these boxes, that's not particularly a new thing, but it feels like the method of delivery for new models has changed. So, when you look at what we got in Dark Imperium, it was a bunch of Primaris, it was a bunch of Death Guard, new sculpts, new everything, great. Forgebane had the Armigers in it, and it had the new Cryptek in it. Now, those came out in that box considerably before they came out as standalone releases, and we have a similar thing with Tooth and Claw, whereby there was the, whatever the Gene Stealer's got, I can't remember the name of the unit, the big beefy boys that's a legitimate way of describing it, surely. And whatever that Primaris Space Wolves, is it the battle leader? It might be the battle leader. I think it's the they use daft ranks because it's Space Wolves and everything's got to be named after fucking wolves. And just calm down with the wolf stuff, all right? We get it. They like wolves. The name is Space Wolves. We were there. We were there way before you could have a wolf lord with a wolf cloak riding a wolf using wolf claws. We were there before you. We were way ahead of you. I hate the way the Space Wolf stuff is named. It's so annoying. These are new models, like proper new models that are being released, not ahead of time because they're being released when they're being released, but the way they're delivering them is interesting. And that's the thing that is interesting to me about this idea of more boxes. It's not the fact we're going to see different boxes or different matchups, although the possibility of these different matchups are kind of cool. Sisters of Battle versus New Slaanesh would be interesting, for instance, although that would have to wait until 2019, so that would be gutting. Grey Knights versus Demons, you can have some properly nicely flavoured matchups using these £95 starter sets. It's the fact that you are getting these new models, these kind of significant new releases bundled into these boxes. I mean, the prime example for this, and the thing that I think is most interesting out of all these boxes so far, it's not technically the same product or the same product line, but the Kill Team Rogue Trader stuff. That is a very interesting shift for me in terms of what Games Workshop is doing, because it is an entire box of nothing but new models. It's all new. All of it is completely fresh, and it's come with 40k rules. That, combined with what we've seen over the last few big releases in terms of boxes, really makes me think that not only are we going to see new boxes because it will help shift those armies, it'll help get people into the hobby, it'll get people expanding their forces, because the relative value of those boxes compared to buying all the stuff individually is crazy good. Even with Tooth and Claw, it's like I'm pretty sure the Space Wolf Primaris side of that box is well over £95, and then you've got an entire Gene Stealer's army next to it. Like, chuck a start collecting on top of either of those forces, and you might not have like the most optimized army in the world. You might not be going off to smash face in tournaments, but you've got a decently sized force for, comparatively, if you buy all the stuff separately, not a lot of money. Of course, it is still a lot of money because this hobby's fucking expensive, but compared to buying it all separately, it's not too bad. It makes me wonder what sort of releases we will see in the future from these boxes, because I think that is definitely something that we're going to see more of in the future, whereby before I was of the opinion that, a good example, new Obliterators, new Abaddon, whatever, that guy, War Master, the lad with the top knot. We've seen rumours about stuff like that, about a new model for him, a new model for Obliterators coming out around Christmas. There's also been this stuff with Blackstone, and there's been talk of some sort of box that is going to be Black Legion versus Orcs or versus whoever. And at first I was like, nah, they wouldn't stick a new model for the War Master. You off your face, Abaddon the Despoiler, getting a new model in just a random box. I've massively flipped on that now, and I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to see. Just because that, I think, is the way they are delivering new kits now. Unless it's an entire launch, unless it's like an entire model launch, like we had with Custodes, or even when Imperial Knights got their the baby knights and the slightly bigger knights. Unless it's a release like that, when it's just an update to an existing line, I think we're going to see these boxes show up, and they're going to be used as a way to boost the sale of those new models. They're going to be a way to get a big buzz around them. It'd be like, okay, we've got this new box, 95 quid. Oh, also, inside here, you get new Obliterators, you get a new Abaddon the Despoiler, and you get a new whatever on the other side of the box, whoever that turns out to be. I mean, even the pattern of that works with Speed Freaks as well, with the Orcs. I mean, the Orcs are getting some mad, ridiculously cool new vehicles, and they're going to be in a standalone box. Probably to start with by themselves for a little bit. It'll be a little while, I'm sure, before we can grab the actual vehicles themselves separately. They'll be available in the Speed Freaks, and then they'll be available for general purchase. that seems to be the way that they're going with it. And honestly, I quite like that idea. In a way, I like it because, well, no, in a way, I don't like it because it's more money. It's spending more for the love of God. Why? But on the other hand, it's a good way to get existing armies pumped up a little bit. It's a good way to release a new set of models, because it gives context almost, and it provides options for pretty much everyone. For people who are veterans of the hobby, it's a good excuse to start a new army or two. For people who are new to the hobby, it's a good way to get into it because you can split the cost 50-50. Not only are you getting a decent force, but you're also getting something brand new as well. New stuff tends to pull people in, essentially, is what happens. I know I'm terrible for it, and if we ever do see an Emperor's Children full release, like Death Guard and Thousand Sons have got, the bankruptcy is on the cards for that. But these big boxes are, I think, going to be maybe not 100% of the time the chosen delivery method for new kits, but I'm pretty sure we're going to see more of them because that's the way that trend has been going. But not only that, we're going to see some new stuff in there. We're going to see things put in there that ordinarily, maybe in the past, would have just been a standalone release, but now it makes more sense to stick them in a box like that to really drum up interest, to really get a few people piling in to start that army, and then release them separately like a week, 2 weeks later. It just feels like that is kind of the way that things are heading. So even though this is a rumour, it just makes too much sense to be... It's almost too sensible to be a rumour. There's no mad shit going on here. It's just, Games Workshop will probably do more of this. Yeah, they probably will, because it's working well for them. It's a good delivery method for new codexes, for new armies, for new rules, for new miniatures as a whole. So really, the thing that I'm most interested in is not whether they'll do more, because they will. It's what form they'll take and what we'll see in them. So if, say, Chaos Space Marines get a proper range refresh, if we do see new Abaddon, if we do see new Obliterators, if we maybe saw new Chaos Space Marines, would we see those models in one of those starter sets facing off against whoever, be it Orcs or any other army for that matter, because, I mean, it's Chaos, they can fight what they like. Yeah, it's more a case of what will they do with it in the future, as opposed to will they do it in the future, because they absolutely will. Anyway, that went on a bit, didn't it? What do you think would be some good combinations for these? For these big boxes where you can split them if you want to, or, these starter sets like Tooth and Claw, Forgebane, Dark Imperium. What would be some good combinations of armies to fight against each other? I've got a few ideas, but let me know what you think in the comments down below as to what you'd like to see in terms of two of these armies going head to head. And do you think they're going to be regular? Do you think we're going to see maybe 2 or 3 a year, or maybe upwards of 6 a year or something for things like this? Let me know. In the meantime, feel free to click any of the bullshit on the screen. Videos, Patreon, subscribe, all of that bollocks. Click it if you like, don't click if you don't want to. And I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.